So my name is Mark Townley, and I'm a FIT leader and a 20-year teacher at Holly Springs High School. And the first thing I'd like to do before we get started is ask how many people in this room that are teachers or were teachers seriously considered leaving the classroom or left the classroom because they had a set of skills or a voice or expertise that they could offer, but there was no really great way to do that. Raise your hand. So of all those of you with your hands raised, how many of you would have stayed in that school community if you had been given that opportunity to have a larger voice and share that expertise with your staff? Just think about that. So this is what this particular barrier really hits home for me personally as well. But there is a silver lining to this cloud. And so with me today, we have Jenny O'Meara, who is the principal at Phillips Middle School in Edgecombe County, and Representative Craig Horn, who is with the North Carolina General Assembly. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So I'd like to start, Jenny, with you. Could you tell us a little bit more about advanced teaching roles in your school?
Sure. I hope that everyone got a generally good idea about what teaching roles we have in Edgecombe County based on the video. I think it's really important to talk about the type of change required to do this. Because this wasn't just about giving teachers more work to do and then paying them more money. Right? If that's what we wanted to do, we would have just created some chair positions, had them still doing a full teaching load, and then paid them more money for that. And we know that wouldn't have been sustainable. And so it's pretty amazing to me how having advanced teaching roles has not just impacted our teachers and our teaching teams, but it's impacted my work, my students, our school culture. It's just transformed kind of how we do school. And so I just want to caution folks, because one of my fears is that people are going to go back to schools and say, oh, we got to get these advanced roles, and they're not going to consider the systems level change required to make it happen. And so, because I think if we were just to have some chairs and give people more money and not really change the school itself, then we are still battling the inertia of the status quo. Right? Like that status quo is so powerful, and if we don't make shifts on all levels, it's just going to suck us right back in, right? And we know that innovation requires a certain type of culture and a certain level of collaboration. And so at our school, because of this advanced teaching roles opportunity that we had, we were able to really take a hard look at our master schedule and rethink a master schedule then so differently and reimagine it in ways that I never thought possible. And that allowed us to free up time for Cassandra Cherry, who you all saw in the video, who is just a dynamic leader, who probably would have left the classroom, I think, if this hadn't popped up. And we were able to really redesign our schedule to free up her time. So she spends most of her time now coaching other teachers, co-teaching with them, and helping them with their PLCs and their data. One of my favorite things that she's doing right now, we have a first-year teacher. He's a first-year math teacher, and he is just so ready to go and so passionate and so excited. And he gets to have this veteran teacher in his classroom almost every single day co-teaching with him and modeling for him. And we're 1 month into school now, and he is the best first-year teacher in 1 month in that I've ever witnessed in my life. And I think it's because he gets to lean on this veteran teacher. What's really, really cool, too, is that because of these advanced roles and because of Cassandra's work, it's actually kind of reaching everywhere else in our school. Now, Cassandra's our only MCL. We don't have an MCL for ELA or social studies. But as a result, we're still starting to innovate now, and it's seeping into our other departments, because they're like, oh, I want that. And so we have a first-year ELA teacher. We made sure to free up one of her periods, so now she can co-teach with a veteran teacher as well. Now, that veteran teacher is not an MCL, but I think it's giving our first-year teachers opportunities to grow in ways that I'm not sure that other first-year teachers have had before.
That's terrific. So I know that a lot of the FIT leaders in this room, a lot of teachers would tell you that the old adage is 20% of the school does all the work, right? And they would tell you that when they start looking at advanced roles, the first thing they would worry about is how much more work does this mean for me, right? And obviously when you put people into these roles, it impacts the culture of your school. Can you explain a little bit more about how that has changed the culture of your school with students and teachers?
Yes. So, I mean, our culture has just completely transformed. And I would say that we are at a place right now which makes me so excited. We have a culture of innovation, a true culture of collaboration, and just a total commitment to continuous improvement. So as a result of the advanced roles, we have a coaching culture now. We have a very great coaching framework that I think is really important for the whole school to have to tee up the MCL to be able to do their role really well. And so I'm coached by my director of innovation, and I model that I'm getting better every day for my teachers. I coach my MCL, she coaches our teachers. And so this is also, again, seeping into everywhere in our school, and it's a really beautiful thing. It's also really created a culture of innovation that we did not have before. So we know that we are piloting this program, right? And we know that we need to iterate every single year on our advanced roles. I think the minute we think we've arrived is the minute we no longer need to be educators. And so, last year we took a hard look at our data. We actually had an EIT last year, an extended impact teacher. And we really looked hard at our data and said, we think we're gonna make a bet on having an MCL. And we're gonna make a bet that that's really how we're gonna leverage and create more collaboration and more innovation within our school. The last thing I want to talk about is the culture of continuous improvement that's come from this. That first year teacher I was talking about, who's a first year math teacher, his MCL goes in and she records him and they watch him teach together. Well, he's begun to record himself every single day and watch himself every single night. And he's just getting better faster. And so it's just completely transforming our culture, and it's been the most fun thing ever. And for all the teachers in the building, I know you guys know, one of the most magical moments is when you can step back as a teacher and your students are collaborating and doing something tough and figuring it out together. And for me, this year is the first time as a principal where I was able to step back and look at my staff and say, oh my gosh, this is magic. Like, they are working together to make it happen for kids now, and there's no such thing as a barrier anymore. The obstacle is now the way, and they're figuring out solutions to our problems at a rapid rate together.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Representative Horn, thank you for being here today. You've been a champion of this model in the legislature for quite some time now. What made this so appealing to you, and how do you think this could make us first in teaching?
As you know, and probably everyone else knows, I'm not an educator. Never been an educator, never will be an educator. Probably could be argued I'm not even educated. But I've had some life experience. As I try to look at the role of the legislature and how we work with, support, define, if you will, what the state, what our kids need, how do we put our best resources against our most challenging problems? That's what I think about a lot in what we do. And that, as I look at education, now let's take that particular question. How do I put my best resources against my most pressing problem? Okay, how do I attract, retain, and encourage teachers to perform at their highest level? Now, I've never known a professional in any genre, any professional, that does not want to improve their ability to be a professional. I think it's inherent in the very definition of professional, is I want to be the best. I want to perform at the top of my game. So how do I help? How do we, the legislature, help the education process address that? So that was one of the things that drove me. The other piece, as I looked at and tried to understand the dynamics in the schoolhouse, it also occurred to me that our organizational model was antiquated. I learned in 8 years in the military and in business that by and large, we have to develop our leaders and give leaders the opportunity to lead. We know that we can't have everybody report to the same person. That's why we have various levels. So, okay, how do I help make that happen? And that's how this advanced teaching roles came to be. As I looked around, I try to listen and learn. I've got an advantage that other legislators do not. I'm the dumbest person in the legislature. That's my advantage, because since I realize that, I can learn from everyone. So I look for models, I look for ideas, and I want to give people that opportunity to grow in their profession, recognizing that as I talk to teachers, why are you a teacher? Because I want to teach. I want to be in front of kids. Why am I forcing them out of the classroom? Why are we forcing them out of the classroom to advance their career? Because as a professional, they want to advance their career. So that's sort of the whole background on advanced teaching roles. The first time I took a run at that, It's interesting how words mean things. And I had the wrong words. Advanced teaching roles is the right words.
So I love that because I've often said that the best teachers in this profession have a growth mindset. But I've also kind of said that we get a single-size pot to grow in. And so imagine what we could do if we had these, different sizes of pots that we could move into. So based on that, how do you think this will ultimately help us to become the first in teaching state?
Provide opportunity, provide options as well as opportunity to grow within the profession. We're going to have to realign how we allocate resources to achieve that goal I said before. How do we put our best resources against our most pressing problems? I will challenge everyone with I have a little card on my nightstand, and when I wake up in the morning, I look at that card. On purpose, I look at the card that says, what are you going to do today that's better than the best that's ever been done? I see that same card when I go to bed at night, and I ask myself, what have I done today that's better than the best that's ever been done? And what am I doing to help you as professionals? Because at the end of the day, it's about the students and the outcome of students. I worry about that all the time.
Absolutely. So, Jenny, Edgecombe County has been well situated to implement the advanced roles. Can you explain a little bit about the role that Edgecombe County has played in designing and implementing, and kind of explain a little bit more on that?
Sure. I think I could explain more about our context. And so, of course, we're a very rural county and just an incredible place with so many assets. I'm obsessed with Edgecombe County. You guys should all come visit sometime if you like. You're all invited. And I think it's really interesting because so there's actually a Phillips Middle School in Chapel Hill. And whenever I Google my school, the Chapel Hill Phillips Middle School always pops up as well. And I always wonder, I wonder what's going on at that other Phillips Middle School. And what I've learned in just kind of observing my Phillips Middle School and theirs is that context matters so much. And I think one thing that was really powerful in Edgecombe County was we had the autonomy to really decide how advanced roles would work for our schools and our communities and most of all our kids. And so we were able to go through a year-long process. I mean, this took an entire year. It wasn't like we all of a sudden decided, let's find a great teacher and give them some more work to do. We went through a year-long process, and each of our schools even had autonomy in deciding what's going to work best for our school and our children. And it was always with kids at the corner, at the center. And I think as a result of that, each of our schools has really designed programs that are drastically impacting our kids. I'm part of a feeder pattern. There's just 3 little schools. Ms. Rao over here is actually principal of Coker-Wimberley Elementary, our feeder elementary school. North Edgecombe High School is our feeder high school. And this past year was the first year in 5 years that all 3 schools have met or exceeded growth. And that's after 1 year of having opportunity culture and having MCLs and EITs in our schools. And I truly believe it's because each school designed what our kids need the most and what our teachers need the most, and it's making a huge impact on just our community.
Thank you. So, Representative Horn, you have championed this for a while now. So I'm going to give you the last word today on our panel. I'd like to ask you, what is your vision for advanced roles as we move forward across the state?
Every kid succeeds. That's the goal, that's the vision. How do we get there from here? I need to learn from you. I need your advice on how do we get there where every kid has the opportunity to succeed. Teaching is a collaborative process. What can we do, the legislature, what can I do personally, because I personalize everything, what can I do to encourage collaboration and let us learn from each other? I was fascinated by the comments you made this morning on the goals of be curious, defer judgment. It wasn't you, it was the moderator. I'm sorry. Learned a lot from you too, and I expect to learn a lot more. I'm really looking forward to that. But, okay, how are we going to do this together? Remember, the legislature doesn't make the rules, it makes the law, and it appropriates money. We got all kinds of people in between you, a teacher, and the legislature that make rules on how to do what the legislature made in the law. So we need to talk to each other, not at each other. We need to break down this thing down with an eye on a single prize. The prize is student outcomes. Each of us have our own strengths and weaknesses. So what can I do to create an atmosphere that allows your strengths to rise to the top and allows you to overcome your weaknesses individually and corporately? We need to change the leadership model inside the schoolhouse, and ensure that we are taking best advantage of our strengths and that we're dealing with our weaknesses so that at the end of the day, that child, that kid, that student has the opportunity to succeed in whatever it is they want to do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So, based on what you've heard so far today, we're going to open this up to the audience. Does anybody have any questions for our panelists today? Yes.
Yeah, hi, Bruce Mildorf with the School Boards Association. Is there a cost involved with this expanded teacher's role? Because it sounds like, they get additional money, they're out of the classroom so they can observe, which means that someone else has to be in the classroom, which might mean another teacher. So is there a cost, and how would that then be expanded beyond the 6 where we're currently piloting it?
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. That's what I said at first too.
Don't encourage it.
But I'm really excited to share this answer. We actually did this within budget and using our state allotted positions. So we're working with public impact, and the way Edgecombe County chose to implement advanced roles was through opportunity culture. And one of the major tenets of opportunity culture is doing this within school budget. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. And so when I talked about getting creative with our master schedule earlier, truly, we got very creative with our master schedule. And so that no one ever has to cover a class for another teacher, right? So we actually were able to free up time for one of our teaching roles by combining some classes, developing some other classes that we thought would be useful for our kids. We were able to create that time. Additionally, because we do this within our budget, and I will say this too, Phillips is a Title I school. So we do have Title I funds that we can use. However, I know there are non-Title I schools who are doing this within budget as well. The other piece too is I just think often we assume that we have to keep everything the way it is, right? And we don't. So one thing that we did at Phillips this year was combine social studies and science, and we're actually teaching science in the context of history. And so kids are learning the two all at once through projects. So by doing that, now we just freed up some time, and now my MCL doesn't have to teach kids directly. So what she can do now is go to other classrooms and pull out small groups. And so she's actually working with small groups all day long, which I think is going to impact kids much more drastically than if she had her own classes to teach all day.
Excellent question. Thank you. Anyone else? In the very back.
Hi, I'm Becky Blanchard. I'm the Senior Early Childhood Policy Advisor with the Department of Health and Human Services. But in my first career iteration, I was a teacher, and I was a bilingual educator in Texas. And I just, first, before I ask my question, want to vouch for roles like this. I became a mentor teacher through a pilot program at my Title I school in a very similar role. So that meant as a second-year teacher, I was responsible for coaching 6 veteran teachers. And it was just incredibly empowering and an opportunity to advance very quickly. And that said, if I didn't want to get into policy, I probably would have stayed in the classroom and stayed in a role like that one. I'm curious to hear, Jenny, about the challenge of selecting teachers for a position like this and the inherent tension between looking for your best teachers and respecting seniority in putting someone in a role like that. And I speak from experience being a second-year teacher in that role. There was a lot of tension when I evaluated teachers who were significantly older than me. So I'd love to hear your thoughts there.
Sure. Well, I will say I'm a principal who's evaluating teachers who've been in education far longer than I, and I just think that means that we've got to create the right kind of culture, right? And so by creating a culture of collaboration, one where it's always kid-centered, because that's what we're all here for, right? We're not in ed for ourselves, we're in ed for kids. And as long as we keep kids at the center, I think that almost in and of itself can solve our problem. I will say selecting the right person matters more than anything. And so we do have a really tedious application process and interview process we go through. And I mean, sometimes it's actually hard to find people who meet the bar that we are setting, because we don't want to just put anybody in this role. We expect to have the best teachers in this role because we know they're going to be able to influence kids and teachers in dramatic ways moving forward.
So that is our time for today, but please seek us out, especially in the breakout sessions, to be able to talk this further with all the FIT leaders and the people from Edgecombe County in particular, both of our principals that are here that can really help with that. I just want to say thank you again to Jenny O'Meara and Representative Horn for helping us out today with this, and we're going to give it right back to Jim. Thank you so much.